Remake Rewind.
Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened. I'm Mike, as always. With me, I've got my two co-hosts. I've got Double D, a.k.a. David, a.k.a. Double D. What's up, Double D?
Hey, that's me. Oh, hey, Mike.
And we've got Alex.
Oh, hey, that's me. It's just Alex.
It's just Alex.
Oh.
Just no nicknames.
No,
It's just Alex.
it's just Alex.
Well, Alex is short for Alexander, so that is a nickname.
No, that's true. That's just sad.
That's all you deserve, though. And maybe if you were a little cooler, we'd call you Xander.
A customer called him Alice once.
No, let's not start that. That's
All right, guys. I'd like you to meet our new host, Alice.
God damn it.
Sorry, Alex. Had to.
All right, guys. So we're talking about a pretty significant folk legend today. We are only going to be covering 2 movies, but there are like 18 movies about this character.
Jesus.
And TV series is
And TV series.
Seriously.
CRI.
And so one of the ones we are covering actually came out 100 years after the actual first version, but we are not covering the first one. We're not even covering the most famous versions of these characters. Who am I even talking about?
Oh,
Robin Hood.
Robin Hood. I thought, for a second, I was thinking Kevin Costner. I was like, Kevin Costner?
Yeah, Kevin Costner's pretty famous.
Yeah, we are covering Robin Hood. We're covering the 1991 Prince of Thieves, and we're covering the 2018 Robin Hood. The first Robin Hood movie came out, and it was called like The Merry Men in like 1908. The most famous version is probably the Errol Flynn version, which I've seen. That movie is nuts. If you guys haven't seen it, go out and watch it. It's insane. Like, there is clearly no safety precautions. You literally see people trampled by horses. You literally see people get like hit by the weapons. It is a gnarly movie from, the heyday of Hollywood before, there were safety. So it's an insane movie, but we're going to watch the 2 that are probably the biggest versions in our lifetime.
I just wanted to say before we get started, I tried to get Men in Tights on here, but it didn't go through, guys. Sorry.
I kind of wanted to do Men in Tights, but it was it was Alice who was like, no, that's not a real Robin Hood movie.
I didn't say that.
It's not, but
It's arguably the best Robin Hood movie that's come out
I would
in the
argue
last
that as well.
30, 40 years.
God, I love that movie.
It's a legit Robin Hood movie, and it just happens to be hilarious.
Achoo.
The key to the greatest treasure in the land. So anyway, we are covering Prince of Thieves from 1991, starring the infamous Kevin Costner, who we spent some great length talking about what a terrible father he was in Man of Steel not too long ago. So it's pretty crazy that we're back on Kevin Costner already.
Where's Cody?
Right? Oh, that's right. He's a Kevin Costner apologist.
Yeah.
So, what are your guys' relationship with this movie? Have you guys seen this movie before?
Oh, yeah, I've definitely seen this. This was a part of my childhood.
I used to watch this movie
VHS, I think.
all the damn time. This movie had to push the boundaries of what a single VHS cassette could take. Because it was 2 hours and 23 minutes for the theatrical version. I know you guys watched the extended version, the like 2 hour and 35-minute one. I watched the theatrical version. I didn't care about the extra 10 minutes. I know it's in it, so I didn't need to watch it.
I don't know what the difference is. I don't remember.
The difference is, we'll do the breakdown a little bit, and then I'll tell you what the differences are. But yeah, I used to watch this movie all the damn time, and it is not an appropriate movie for small children. But I watched this movie a lot, like under 10. Like,
Yeah,
I definitively remember watching it in this one apartment that I lived in when I was like 3 years old.
I definitely watched it a lot at my grandparents' house.
Yeah, but I have fond memories of this movie. I genuinely liked it, and it's got a pretty good cast of Americans. Arguably the 3 leads are American. Oh, 3 out of the 4 leads are American.
Wait,
and it's great.
I just want to take a quick poll. Did you guys enjoy this movie?
I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I think I might have had like a chickenpox syndrome because I've never seen this movie before, and I didn't quite enjoy it.
Which one did you watch first?
I watched this one first,
Oh, okay.
The way you're supposed to.
and then I watched the new one.
So anyway, who's got a summary? And we'll just go into it, and then we'll talk about. I've got a ton of trivia about this movie.
That would
lot.
be me. Let me synopsize.
All right, thanks, Alice.
God, no, no. So this is my last podcast.
You promise? Is this all it took?
Yes. This is from Kenneth. It's when Robin and his Moorish companion come to England and the tyranny of the Sheriff Nottingham.
You want to hear the first trivia?
What, yeah.
So the Moorish thing, there were no Moorish characters in the original ballads or any of the other movies until a TV show in the 1980s on BBC introduced a Moorish character, and the writers of this movie just saw it on BBC and was like, well, if the BBC put this character in, then it's probably from the source material. And so they wrote the Moorish character Azim, which is Morgan Freeman's character, but that character and the Moors do not appear in any of the ballads or the original source material.
Do they bring them up in the new one, right? And
The new one. Well, let's just save the new one for when we get to it. We haven't even started the old one yet. Jesus.
He decides to fight back as an outlaw, and that's from Kenneth.
Oh, that was short and sweet.
You're almost there, Alex. Why'd you let him put it?
It's because I am the alpha and he's the beta.
But he could have just said no, or he could have just finished.
It doesn't matter. Even if he finished, I would have edited it out. I am.
Maybe you did edit it out. Maybe that actually didn't happen.
Yep, maybe. So that's a very, very short one for a very long movie.
2.5
between
hours.
2 hours and
Two
20
hours.
minutes and
Oh
2
my
hours
God.
and 35 minutes. So to answer your question, Double D, the main difference between the original version and the extended one that you guys watched was Kevin Costner, I don't know if you guys know this, is like a diva in real life. Like, he is kind of an asshole. He's very full of himself. In this movie, it's rumored that he read all of his lines off of cue cards. Like the late Marlon Brando. So he wasn't even the first person offered the role. They actually really wanted Cary Elwes to do it. And he said that he didn't really like the story. And then he ended up doing Robin Hood Men in Tights. So Kevin Costner got the role, and he really wanted to do an accent. And the director was like, no, you're an
Suck at
American.
it.
Let's just
Yeah.
do your voice. So apparently he was doing things where it's like anytime the director was in a good mood, he would speak in an accent. Anytime the director was in a bad mood, he would talk to his American accent. So he was trying to do like a Pavlov's dog kind of situation with voices. And that didn't really work. So
No.
you could see in this movie, there are times where he has a slight accent, but 99% of the movie, he's just doing his American accent,
His
right?
Kevin Costner voice.
Right.
That's his Kevin
But
Costner voice.
That's his Kevin Costner voice. Yeah, this is most of it.
But this is right after he did Dances with Wolves, right? So he was just a
He-
popular person at the time.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he was one of the biggest actors of all time for quite a while. Like, he did,
Waterworld,
Boulder Gnome, Tin
Postman.
Well, Postman. So Waterworld is kind of where he started to lose his clout, and then he also did For Love of the Game. And I'm gonna get into the vanity. So I'm gonna remind me to bring up For the Love of the Game as we get a little bit further into the movie, specifically when we talk about the weird bath scene. Okay,
Weird bath scene
all right.
for the love.
So a lot of people were seen for the Sheriff of Nottingham, which was played by the late Alan Rickman,
Snape.
who actually won a BAFTA for that role. And he didn't want to do the movie. He turned down the role twice until the director said he could basically interpret the character however he wants and do whatever he wanted with the character. Now, Kevin Costner did not like the fact that Alan Rickman was basically given access to do whatever he wanted with the role, and he wasn't allowed to do an accent. And apparently, throughout filming, there was times where he recognized that Alan Rickman, is Alan Rickman, who's an amazing actor,
Way
was
more
doing
amazing
a
than Kevin Costner. in
great
this movie.
job. And so apparently, he went to like one of the producers, who's his friend, and decided that they wanted to get an edit of the film. So they edited the film and cut a bunch of Alan Rickman scenes. And a lot of that stuff stayed cut. A lot of it made it back into the theatrical cut, and even more of it made it back into the director's cut and the extended cuts. So the main difference out of that 10-minute difference is actually there's a scene where you find out that the witch, Mortician, I can't, the witch. It's spelled Mortian. I don't think they ever actually say her
No.
name.
He just
But-
calls her Crone all the time.
Yeah, it's revealed later on that she is the Sheriff of Nottingham's mother, and what she did is she actually killed the person that raised the Sheriff of Nottingham. She killed that baby and replaced that baby with her baby. So it's revealed later on that he is her daughter. Her daughter. He is her son, and that's why towards the end of the movie, when it's like super creepy and rapey, that she's like trying to egg him on to rape Marion. So
Jesus.
that's the main difference.
There's a lot to fit in 10 minutes.
Yeah, but they did it. So that scene where you find out that they're related is in the version you guys watched, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that was not in the version that I watched.
I remember that as a child, so I guess I had the extended version as a child.
You must have the director's cut.
Fancy.
So what are some highlights in this movie for you guys?
Besides Kevin Costner's poor acting,
Yes. Besides that,
I really like every scene with Azim.
Morgan Freeman's
Morgan
character?
Freeman character was great in this movie. Like he wasn't like I wouldn't say he's a main character, which he is, right? But every scene he was in, he was a star in that scene.
Yeah, he stole every scene he was in. He was really funny, and I mean, Morgan Freeman's a great actor. We know that. I liked everybody in this movie with the exception of Kevin Costner. So this movie was the second biggest movie of that year.
What was the first?
Yeah, what was the first?
Terminator 2.
Hey,
okay. That makes sense.
So yeah, the only movie to beat that this year.
that's
so
why I
in
didn't
both,
see this movie.
Yeah,
Too busy watching Terminator.
2 was the biggest movie that year. This was the second biggest movie. Now the thing is, critics at the time basically said the movie's great. Kevin Costner's terrible,
Yep.
and he was like nominated for like a Razzie for it.
Oh, nice.
Well, then you had Alan Rickman getting nominated for BAFTAs, which is the British version of the Oscars. And they were talking about like, the setting, the story, the action was good. It was just Kevin Costner. So Kevin Costner was not happy about how, his performance was just jeered. But yeah, I liked everybody else. I loved the guy who played Little John. I thought he was great.
Yeah, he's good.
I kind of liked what they did with Will Scarlet, with Christian Slater.
Christian Slater. I totally forgot he was in this movie, to be honest with you.
I definitely remembered he dropped an F-bomb in this movie.
Oh, dude.
In a PG movie. This is after PG-13 movies came out, and they let an F-bomb slide. And, this movie takes place like 800 years before, the release of the movie. And 300 years before the word fuck was credited. So they say the word fuck what came around about 1475, and this movie takes place in 1194.
So he was a trendsetter.
He was a trendsetter, but apparently that was ad-libbed, and the director thought it was hilarious, so they decided to keep it, even though it wasn't historically accurate. But that's not the only thing historically inaccurate about this movie. So, how much do you guys know about Robin Hood, the actual tales?
Not much.
No, I wouldn't say I'm a historian about it.
So Robin Hood, they think it's based off of a couple different people, but ultimately it was just like a folk legend. There's several ballads. A lot of the ballads have been lost over time. There's certain ones that are considered like main ones, and the Merry Men's origins vary. But like Will Scarlet, who's Christian Slater's character, is one of the early ones. Little John, of course, is in like every version. Depending on the movie, they drastically changed King Richard and Prince John. So the animated one with the fox and the Robin Hood Men in Tights very heavily lean on the Prince John portion of the stories. So they mix historical fiction and actual historic events. But there wasn't a single Robin Hood character. There were a couple different people over like a 200-year period that they kind of merged into one, folk hero. And that's kind of how these got started. So the characters drastically changed. Like Will Scarlet is different in every version because he's been called like Will Scarlet. It's something crazy. There's like 4 or 5 names.
So he's not always his brother.
This is the only version that he's his brother, as far as I know.
That twisted nothing, though. That's it.
I mean, it made them like closer together and also like hate each other at the same
Just like
time.
real brothers.
Yep.
Right at the end.
I had a note on Will Scarlet, but it's gone. It's gone.
It's gone.
Just like
Like
the
my
snap.
trust for Will Slater. I mean, wait, William Scarlett.
Will Slater. Christian Slater's brother.
Yeah, but ultimately, it's something like in different versions, they had like a Will Scarlet and like a Will, like a different Will in the movies. Everything like there's certain times where because he appears in a couple different ballads that got translated differently. So if there are movies that have like two versions of the same character with different names, kind of thing. So like it's kind of like the Bible in that a lot of things got mistranslated and everything changed. But let's kind of go back into talking about the movie.
Cool.
The beginning of the movie, I thought it was rad. I thought it was
pretty
awesome.
Cool.
Like there's a whole prison escape thing, and there's this guy who's going to get his hand cut off for stealing bread. And Robin was like,
No, I stole the bread.
I stole the bread. And he's like, dude, getting your hand cut off right now will totally make you fucking dead. I can do it. And then he like yanks on the little thing that they're using to keep his hand taut. He ends up getting one of the guards' hands cut off. And he's trying to free everybody. And Azim is like, you can't free them. You can free me. Save me. Save as many people as you can. And you can only save me. And he basically abandons all the other prisoners except for like his one friend.
They'll die either way, but he can save him by releasing him.
No, because he kept trying to break the chains and couldn't. But like for whatever reason,
couldn't he just like got like the
Azim...
keys from a guard or something? Or
no,
No,
time.
that's not a thing. There are no keys.
No.
So yeah, he ends up abandoning most of the like the prison camp, and then they go like through a sewer grate, and the guy that he saved by not getting his hand chopped off immediately gets shot.
Right,
and he's like,
spine, it looked like.
Yeah, and he's like, go bang my sister.
I'm pretty sure that's not what he said, but okay.
I'm paraphrasing. He said, give this ring and watch out for her. Back then it meant marry her and make sure that she's okay and provide for her. So basically bang my sister.
It's a promise ring. Yeah.
I thought it was an abstinence ring. Okay.
You're right. If true love waits.
Chastity belt.
They end up going... Zim is like, you saved my life. I owe you a life debt like Chewbacca. Oh, rest in peace, Peter Mayhew.
Oh, yeah.
So they end up going back to England.
Wait. Can we go back to the death of the brother first? So sure. He just creates a distraction by running right at them and immediately dies.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
How did they not catch him? It didn't take long to kill him.
Well, then there's this, like, they immediately just go around a corner and find fruit and just sit there eating, and the guard just run right by him.
Yeah.
But they end up back in England, and Robin tries to trick Azim, like, why don't you just go back and be with your family? And he's like, I would disrespect them by doing that. And so he tries to get the people who are in the boat to attack him, and he ends up like fighting. He's like, I gotta save your life. And like he spends most of the movie like not actually doing anything every time that Robin's in danger, which is a little strange.
I thought that was part of the comedic value.
I agree. It was kind of funny. And then we see, was it in this? Oh no, wait, I'm trying to think. I might be getting them confused.
The dad is dead.
Oh yeah, the dad is dead. Yeah. So in this one, they made him be like he was a devil worshiper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that was this one. So yeah, Alan Rickman shows up as the sheriff of Nottingham with the clan. Oh, I thought I was gonna get a joke with that or a laugh. I guess not.
Oh no.
I mean,
it looked like
wait, edit it in, Mike.
No, I'm gonna re-say it, and you guys just laugh.
Oh, okay.
My ego's fragile. So Alan Rickman shows up to the Loxley Manor. That's not funny. He shows up to the Loxley Manor and was like, "Hey, you're a devil worshiper, and you better pay your taxes." Kind of thing, and King Richard's not coming back, and you need to stop being loyal to King Richard. And then decides to kill Robin Hood's dad, and they're dressed like they're from the clan. Like he's got like everybody in white hoods and everything like that. Yeah. They've got their crosses.
It was a very anticlimactic death, dude. He like charges at them on a horse, and they just surround him. Like,
yeah.
What the hell is that?
And then I mean, I guess the overall arc of the film is Robin Hood shows up, he's upset, and then he goes to Maid Marian, and she's like, "Yeah, I have to pretend to be like." Super cool with everybody. So she calls him a thief, and Guy Grisborne shows up, who in this version of the story is the Sheriff of Nottingham's cousin. And Robin Hood ends up like beating the shit out of like 4 guards and Guy Grisborne. and then they go and hide in the forest, Sherwood Forest, where he runs into Little John, and they have a really great scene.
Wait, was that before or after they find that kid in the tree and they start?
It's after the.
Oh, it's after.
Yeah, it's after.
But I like how they try to get that kid down, it's chopping it fucking tree down.
Right. Well, at first I thought maybe that was gonna be a young Christian Slater. I'm like, does this movie take place over like 10 years or something? Because he kind of looks like a young Christian Slater.
Yeah.
Nah, that's Little John's son.
It's Little Johnson. So they end up like chopping, they end up saving Little John's son, but then they end up in Sherwood Forest, and they go to cross the river, and all the merry men are like, you got to pay a toll. You got to pay the troll toll if you want that boy's soul.
Hole. Oh, wait.
His boy's hole.
His soul hole?
So I actually really like this little mini fight scene. How they're like hitting each other with sticks, and they each like went around. But then Robin pretends to be like drowned in the water until Little John comes, and then he knocks Little John into the water, and he can't swim, but it's only like a foot deep.
Yeah. Also,
and I kind of like that.
Also, what the fuck is John talking about? Where it's like, give me that gold medallion. I'm like, that shit ain't gold.
Yeah, it was like mostly silver.
It was gold. Gold looked different
accents.
back in 1194.
Oh, okay. It wasn't gold before.
Nope.
It was silver gold.
I mean, they had gold coins. That looked gold.
No, that didn't. I did like when they were getting ready to, when they saw guards coming up at one point. This was when they were still at Marion's castle. Azim pulls out a telescope, and he's like, "Oh shit, there's like a ton of people coming."
Oh yeah.
And then Robin looks through the telescope, and he's like, "Oh fuck!" and pulls his sword out. Like they were right there, and they're like, how the fuck are you Christians, like the dominant like power of the world, when you fucking think that you look like he's like you just saw they're not there, and you think they appeared out of nowhere, you fucking idiot. Like just not understanding telescopes.
That's pretty good. That was pretty
Yeah.
fun.
And then this is the one thing that I absolutely remembered about the movie. I think they may even parodied it in Men in Tights, but the guy Grisborn shows up and tells the sheriff of Nottingham what's going on, and he says, if I ever find him, I'll carve his heart out with a spoon. Yeah. And he's like, why would you do that? Because it's dull, it'll hurt more. And I mean, the major events of this movie is Robin convinces them to fight back, and they build like little tree houses and like the Ewoks, and they just keep doing all these raids, and there's like a training montage where everybody fucking sucks at fighting, and then they get good at fighting, and at one point they kidnap Marion, and it's kind of weird. And then the old man, they find like this old man at the beginning of the movie at the manor who had his eyes cut out, and he ends up leading all the bad guys to the camp, and so all these people get captured. They're going to be hung, and everybody has to go save them. And the sheriff of Nottingham tries to rape Marion and force her into marry him. It's a really weird scene. Like really weird, like honestly quite disturbing.
Yeah.
I mean, they explained it though, but yeah, it's.
I mean, they explained that like, hey, she's a cousin to the king, and the king, they're trying to make the king not come back, and they're going
to have some claim to the throne if he's
exactly. And then the mom/witch was like, you need to put your seed in her right now. If you fuck her right now, she's gonna have a boy. And he's like, I can't till we're married. But then like they're not actually married, so it's like semantics.
Yeah, like what's the point? Like at this, like this movie is just like over dramatic and ridiculous. It's just
that shot though, Rickman, when they're like so that action scene was great though. Like when they're like storming the castle, and then like they're trying to save all the people being hung, and then Little John just like tackles the post and frees everybody. And there's that really great shot of him, Robin Hood pulling the bow, and it's like the fires behind him and everything. Like there are some really cool shots in this movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Then, and there's some really good one-liners. Like there's a point where they're talking like after a montage of a bunch of raids, and they do a lot of the same stuff that they did in what the fuck movie did we cover with the Cold War and the Russians?
Red Dawn.
Red Dawn. Where they have like little hidey holes, and then they like put they pop out, and then they kill some people, and then they put the dead people back in the hidey holes.
Yeah, I also thought that, like, because he like rolled into one and put it over him, but they were riding horses by him, and I was like, oh shit, he's gonna get smashed.
Right. But there's like a scene like after the montage of them like robbing a bunch of stuff where the sheriff of Nottingham says something along the lines of like, wait, the poor love him. He steals money from me, forcing me to hurt them, and they love him for it. And he's like, you know what? Fuck it. No more food for the poor, no treatment for the lepers, and no Christmas.
No, it wasn't food. It was no more leftovers for them.
Right. But that Alan Rickman ad-libbed that entire line, like that entire thing.
Alan Rickman's such a good actor.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up is there's a weird scene. Now, Kevin Costner, like I said already, is very vain.
Yes.
And thinks he's like fucking God's gift to the world. So there's a weird scene where...
Is it him naked?
Yeah. So they go to rob Maid Marian, and then she realized what's going on. So she's like, hey, blindfold me and let me go talk to Robin Hood. So there's a point where like when she shows up to the little camp, he's bathing and she's just like, oh, and everything. And it's like, he's like in his 40s. He's not ripped by any stretch of the imagination.
And she's like standing hella far away.
Yeah, but she's just like, oh. And so that was definitely for him to feel like proud. But I've got some inside knowledge on another movie he was in called For the Love of the Game, which came out in like the late 90s. And he plays very much like Bull Durham, like a, baseball player is a little too old to be doing what he's doing. But then that movie, apparently there was a scene that had full frontal for him. And test audiences laughed. And so they cut his dick scene.
That's amazing.
Yep. Now, this is all hearsay. I can't say for facts, but this is something that came out around that time.
I take it as a fact. Everything you say is a fact.
I like it. And then the other thing that this movie is known for, and I kind of hinted at it earlier, was the first F-bomb in history. Fuck. So there's a scene where they're storming the castle, and then someone closes the gates, and they need to find a way to get over. So Azim and Robin end up on a catapult, and they sling themselves over the wall, and Will Scarlet goes, fuck me, they cleared it. And they kept that in.
Good job, Christian Slater. Good ad lib.
Anything you guys want to talk about on this movie? Any things you guys really want to bring up?
I like the scene where the Celt's introduced, and he just fucking puts that flaming log onto his hand.
Yeah.
That was
cool.
amazing.
So King Richard shows up at the end of the movie to like marry Marianne and Robin. So they had Sean Connery played the character, right? And he was like 61 years old when he played this character. Originally, they really wanted Sean Connery to play Robin's dad at the beginning of the movie. And he said he didn't want to do that because he'd been playing a lot of dads lately. And he's also a very vain man. So he decided he wanted to play King Richard. Now, King Richard, historically in 1194, was 31 years old. And they got a 60-year-old man to play him.
Wait, so how old was Robin Hood?
Well, Robin Hood, as I said earlier, was not a real person.
Oh.
Idiot.
Yeah, I'm dumb. I thought we clarified this before.
We definitely have.
Yeah, all right.
I did like another shot that was pretty cool. Like the montage ends.
You know, Sean Connery used to be Robin Hood, right? He was Robin Hood.
Yeah,
and Robin and Marian.
Yeah, he played Robin Hood once. Yep. I did like
Sean
at the end of the montage of them like making the trees, making the weapons, and training. It ends with a POV shot of the arrow splitting, like the classic. Because this movie does not have like the competition, which so many other Robin Hood movies have. So they had to show him split the arrow.
Classic Robin Hood.
I was a little confused in like, how did the witch get out of the locked room to stab Morgan Freeman? And it's like there's a lot of like.
No, she left the room.
But how does she? Because wasn't the door locked and they're banging it in?
No, she opened the door and walked out, and then, or maybe there was a secret passage or something. I don't remember now. Fuck you, Alice.
God damn it.
But yeah, she comes out and like the painted man.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, they just keep calling him the painted man.
Racist. No, she was super terrified of him specifically because he was dark skinned. It's pretty fucked up. I do like there was a point where Will Scarlet was wanted to turn in Robin, and so he pulls out like a throwing knife and he's gonna like throw it, and Robin shoots him in the hand.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's
kind of thing. It's like that's like a fucked up wound back then. Like you don't recover from that back then.
I thought they were just gonna chop off his hand.
Right, and then you have the reveal that they're half brothers, because the whole movie Christian Slater's just like a prick to him, and then he's like, my father didn't love me because of you. And honestly, Robin's kind of a dick in this. So, it's not like a Jon Snow bastard situation. It's Robin's mom died and his dad moved on and was in a relationship with another woman. And Robin's like, you know what? I kind of wish you were not fucking other people other than my mom, even though she's been dead for a couple years. And so the dad just like, okay, peace. And like just sent his son away.
Get out of here.
Get out of here, Christian Slater. Go being Mr. Robot 30 years after this.
Also, why didn't Robin Hood let Will dance with Marianne?
Because she's already
That's his
taken.
woman.
She was spoken for. Like he could have just let her have one dance and then say she's spoken for.
It was actually Kevin Costner that said
was
that.
the turning point.
It wasn't Robin Hood.
Right.
Because I feel like that was the turning point when he definitely decided to fuck him up.
Nope.
Okay.
I like Michael Wincott though as Guy Gisborne. Like he was great.
Guy Gisborne, yeah.
Fuck.
And then he gets killed.
He gets killed.
by
Wait, how come we
Sheriff
let
of
him
Nottingham.
live the first time? I don't remember why Robin let him live the first time around.
Because to deliver a message, he says. So basically, when that character shows up the first time, they're chasing a kid who ends up being Little John's son for poaching, because he killed a deer that ended up on like royal lands. So Guy Gisborne was like hunting him. He's like, "You're sending 5 guys after one child for one deer," and then the kid's like, "I've killed hundreds of deer," kind of thing. Like you're not helping his cause. But Robin kills the other guards and then leaves Guy Gisborne saying, go tell the sheriff what happens when you torment people on my land, because they're technically on like the Loxley estate.
Got it.
But, that was already been taken because the dad was a devil worshiper.
Well, I mean, I feel like they would have gotten that message if they just didn't come back.
Nope, because anything could have happened.
I guess.
It could have been wildlings.
Could have been deer.
White Walkers.
No, not White Walkers.
That couldn't have been just wildlings.
Just wildlings.
The wall has been around for thousands of years protecting us. That's absurd.
We're mixing universes here, guys.
All right. I mean, I know we kind of jumped around, but we're pretty far into our recording, and I think we should move on to the other one. But I just got to say, I actually really enjoyed watching this movie. I didn't think it felt like 2.5 hours. I really enjoyed watching it. Maybe part of that was nostalgia, but I liked it. And Alice can go fuck herself if or himself. Let me reset that. Alice can go fuck himself if he didn't like the movie.
I mean, I don't know that I liked the movie. I enjoyed the movie. I definitely liked it when I was younger, but this time watching it, I did have a tougher time watching it. But I did enjoy it.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
I think it's the pacing. The pacing is just really slow. I don't have that like going back to watching it kind of nostalgia to it. I did like Alan Rickman, and Morgan Freeman's performance was
Alan Rickman. Do your guys' best Alan Rickman impression?
No.
Snipe.
Snipe? The fuck? All right. Who's gonna summarize the second movie?
I got it since Alice did the first one. All right. This one was also very short. A war-hardened crusader and his Moorish commander mount an audacious revolt against the corrupt English crown. By Anonymous.
I also enjoyed this movie.
I too enjoyed this movie. I felt it was very summer movie.
So this movie was actually delayed because the director really wanted Taron Egerton. And he had a commitment to Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle. So they actually pushed this movie back a little bit. Now, that being said, there are a lot of problems with this movie. Like, it's not a good movie.
No, definitely
but I found it
But it
fun.
is enjoyable, yes.
Yeah.
So it's weird because they try to do this, like, weird... And I guess the easiest way to phrase this is just based off the costume design. All the costumes were designed to be 1/3 in the past, 1/3 in the present, and 1/3 in the future.
What the fuck?
Why?
Because they wanted it to be unique. So, like, in the war scenes when they're off fighting
It looked
the
like
Crusades,
modern
you'll notice,
combat.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very...
yeah, they had,
Exactly.
like, camouflaged tunics, and then they had, like, vests that look like leather, bulletproof vests that we have nowadays. and they don't use swords. Like nobody uses a sword in this
I was like,
movie.
what's is that logistically sound to use art like your bow in close quarter combat? I don't understand.
So
Legolas
that's
did
where
it.
it gets a little weird because so the director and the writers list said in this universe, bows and arrows are like guns, and so like it's supposed to be like that.
All right.
Sorry, I paused because I thought I lost you guys for a second.
Jamie Foxx's sword or hand with the sword.
He was, the only
That was,
person
like,
who's
the only
using the
sword.
sword was Guy Grisborn in this one. Like he's like the only one. And so the other thing that's weird about this is, I don't know if you guys saw this, but a couple years back there was this guy who blew up on YouTube for archery. His name was Lars Anderson.
Yeah, I do remember this. He was
Yeah, so it was this like funny looking European dude, and he was just jumping around and shooting arrows, and they had this whole thing is like he discovered like ancient texts to show we've been using bows and arrows wrong for hundreds of years, and you know the way we use arrows now is great for like sports, but it's not practical for combat. And like they use shorter bows, and they actually fired on the opposite side because it saved half a second, and they actually hired that guy to be the archery kind of coach on this, so that all the actors who use bows worked with this guy, and he was like the consultant for this. So it's come out since that guy is basically a hack, and like almost everything he said is not true, and like people have gone and broken down his videos, and you can see like tons of cuts and edits, and you know people have shown that who are close to him is like have said that he would do hundreds of takes before he'd get it right, kind of thing. So it's like the guy's a hack.
Nice.
But they hired him to do this movie and teach people how to use bows.
Well,
And
for what
there's
it's worth, it looked cool.
It did, but there's also weird stuff. So I saw this movie in theaters and didn't remember it because I was in an altered state. And I really didn't remember. I remember coming home and be like, that was fun, but I didn't remember the movie. This time around, I still had fun with it. I remember it, but there's weird stuff in this movie where it's like, he's supposed to be super fast, Robin. Like they teach him how to fire like 3 arrows in a second, but they clearly sped up the footage.
Oh yeah.
And then there's like weird shit with fire. Like they make it where there is no like Sherwood Forest in this one, and they're all like Nottingham is on a mine, but the mine just seems to produce fire. Like there are like fire blasts in this town, like literally like every 3 seconds you just see a
No, it's because of the mine.
constantly. And like every time there's like a cool action beat, there would be like a little flame behind whatever is going on. It also seemed like it was filmed in a high frame rate because it looked almost like a documentary on like Discovery Channel. Like did you guys see any of the Hobbit movies in the high frame rate?
Unfortunately.
I think
No.
I saw one of them.
So like the thing with the high frame rate is when you add more frames, you get more detail, and then you can start to see like weird zippers and stuff like that. You can see that stuff looks weird because it's a costume. I felt like this kind of had that a little bit, where there's just times where it was almost too smooth and like it kind of looked cheap, but the action I thought was great.
Yeah.
No, I had a lot of fun with it.
It's fun.
That weird modern war arrow scene. I actually I hated because it looked like modern war, but it was actually kind of cool.
It was cool with like the giant crossbow that could shoot 6 and they were counting it, and
Yeah, and he was just pulling it back to shoot. I like that. That was cool.
and then they call like an airstrike.
Oh, yeah.
They've
He's
like
make
shooting
it
an arrow
rain
that has like
fire.
a flare on
I
it.
was like, what?
They
was
get the
definitely,
rock
like,
slingers.
Suicide
Yeah.
And so they made it like a modern war movie in that scene.
It's basically
very-
a Batman movie, though.
It's definitely Batman Begins, and we are not the first ones to say that. When this movie came out, people made that comparison, especially with the twist ending at the end. But they
Harvey Dent,
even so what was that
With Harvey Dent?
with Harvey Dent played by Christian Grey. So yeah, by the end of the movie, that's Will Scarlet, a completely different version of the character.
Yeah.
So and then they had Azim and Little John combined. So in this version, Jamie Foxx plays a guy named like Yaza, and he goes, but that translates to John, so call me John. And
I was
then
like, what?
you're right. And then, but he was also like the Moore character, so they combined Little John and the Moorish character from the 1980s on. Then they had like the Sheriff of Nottingham. They completely did, like you said, Batman. It was just like, oh, you need to be like this playboy kind of guy and get in favor and just be smug and like just throw your money around. And it really was Batman Begins. They even had music that sounded like Batman Begins with the heavy drums and like the kind of the weird shrieks. It's like dum 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 dum. Like there's even
again,
towards towards the end when like they were like really in the big action scenes. The music during the big action scenes sounded like the Joker theme in The Dark Knight. Like with the whole thing with like the strings going, like I can't do it, but it sounded like the Joker theme. Like I guarantee if I just clipped the music out from some of the scenes and asked people what movie it came from, they would be like, "Oh, that's the Joker stuff from Dark Knight."
I probably couldn't pinpoint it.
I bet if I went through and played it, I bet you would think that it was The Dark Knight. This also like stole a lot of stuff from other movies, like plot points. So it had a very similar plot to the 2011 Three Musketeers film that we covered, in that like the church was trying to create the war so that the church can become the rulers of the country. It also had like a weird, let's see, I wrote down some of my observations. Where was it? Oh, it also had like the heist from The Italian Job, where they were trying to like blow.
They broke the ground.
They broke the ground and had like the car with all the treasure come down. Yeah. It didn't. I don't think there was anything unique in this movie other than like the visual style of the clothing.
I was a little confused. You remember that scene where all the soldiers have that line of fire behind them?
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. Where they just like hold the fire with shields.
Yeah. Why? I mean, I get that they could move it, sure, maybe, but why would they just stand there?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, also like the guards in this movie looked like the Cobra Commandos in the first G.I. Joe movie with Channing Tatum. Like they had like the same helmets. But I really did like the action. Like he whooped all kinds of ass, and I liked the training montage of like the chains and everything. Like there's enough. Like it's a dumb movie, but it's fun. And
Yeah,
like I genuinely like Taron Egerton. Like I love him in the Kingsman movies.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
And I'm actually really looking forward to that Elton John movie, Rocket Man, and he plays Elton John in it. Yeah. So like I genuinely find him charming, and I thought he did a great job, even though he's like 4'2".
I don't think that's accurate.
Double D, I think even you're taller than him.
I'm gonna look it up.
No, I think you're probably. I think he's got like a Tom Cruise thing where he's probably like 5'3", 5'4", but they say he's 5'7" or 5'8".
It's like Michael Keaton in platform shoes.
Right. Well, it's like, listeners of the show who've listened for a long time, I know that I've said some things about Sam Worthington in the past, but Sam Worthington definitely has some height on this guy.
The internet says he is 5'9".
Oh, he is definitely not 5'9".
He's taller than Jon Snow.
Yeah, well, everyone's taller than Kit Harington. They even make fun of it on the show.
I was expecting more with Ben Mendelsohn, to be honest. Like I like Ben Mendelsohn,
he was slumming it in this movie.
He wasn't that great.
He's a good actor when he wants to be, but I think he also recognizes like, why is he going to put a bunch of effort into this movie? Like he did this for a paycheck.
Yeah, I feel like everything he did was just over the top.
Yeah, but he also does the same. Like he basically played the Sheriff of Nottingham exactly the same way as he played the bad guy in Ready Player One.
Oh yeah.
It's like the exact same character.
Sorrento.
This whole movie is like they do the exact same thing where like we're gonna compare it to Batman again, but like throughout the movie, Robin is hanging out with like parties with rich people, and he's just like, oh yeah, the hood, yeah, that guy's crazy. Oh, he's probably just ugly. That's why he has the mask. And the exact same thing that Bruce Wayne does in the Batman Christopher Nolan one's like, man who dresses up like a bat, that's crazy kind of thing. There's something wrong with him. Like it really is like just a medieval Batman movie.
Why were they putting all those hoods everywhere? I thought
to be like V for Vendetta.
I feel like that's just a waste of fabric and money.
Like, wouldn't it be better if they just like, I don't know, painted it on or something?
Yeah, just like the dome.
Right, just like graffiti.
But then they're just like cutting off hoods. I'm like, damn, that's costly.
I do have one question.
They're all like leather too. Yeah.
So, Little John's a badass in this movie. Like he gets his hand cut off, but he still whoops all kind of ass. He like gets it wrapped in like steel. Like he puts like his stub in like molten steel so that way he can have like, and then polishes it so he can basically like punch people in the face with the steel like nub. But there's a scene where it doesn't really make sense. Like Marion just figures out who Robin is pretty easily, and she convinces them. And she's like the head of an underground organization with Friar Tuck, and they end up going on a heist at the same party, and then they end up having to like save each other. And then there's a point where John's like sacrifices himself so they can get away, and they capture him. And then eventually he like, for whatever reason, the guard leaves like a pot with him. So he like breaks the pot, puts a piece of the pot, ceramic in his mouth, slices the guy's throat. And then the only reason our hero gets saved is which he got shot in the chest. Like Robin Hood gets straight up shot in the heart.
Yeah, I thought he got shot in the heart. Like,
somehow survives. And he's about to get killed by, the Sheriff of Nottingham. And then it turns out like the entire time there's this guard who's sitting there, and it turns out to be Little John.
He has like a little missing hand and his stuff. And
how the fuck did he get all that armor on? There's like buckles and clasps and ties, and he's missing a hand.
With the ceramic plate?
No, not to be an ableist, but there's no physical way a one-armed man can put himself in his own armor. Even in Game of Thrones, he has like people, like Jaime Lannister has people helping him put on his like armor. That's what his squire's for. This guy he's a prisoner. He didn't have a squire to put that armor on. There's no way he put that armor on by himself.
Maybe he didn't buckle some of them.
Nope. I checked. All the buckles were buckled.
He paused it and counted.
Right? Well, one of the things that's weird is, so like the other weird subplot in this movie is Christian Grey from 50 Shades of Grey is
Will.
Yep, Will Scarlet. He is living in the slums, but he's like trying to be like a politician, and he's like really upset that Robin Hood's there, and he's really upset that Maid Marian is like leading an underground organization. But like everything kind of comes to a head where they basically either have to leave town or do a rebellion, and he's trying to convince everyone not to do it. And then Robin like does his little speech and like, "I'm Batman. You want to fight with me?" And they're like, "Yeah," and he's like, "But none of us are gonna fight unless Christian Grey wants to fight." And Christian
we
Grey's
need Harvey Dent.
Right, and Harvey Dent is like, "Okay, I'll fight." And then he gets his like ass whooped like immediately in the fight, and then he like drops a Molotov cocktail, burns his face off.
Well, that's because he saw them kissing. Yeah, and he like flipped out.
But at that point, Marion, Robin, John, Friar Tuck, some of the other people who like are stealing the treasure are like on their way out, and Robin's like, "Hey, where's Christian Grey, aka Two-Face, aka Will?" And they're like, "Oh, he knows the plan. He'll come if he can." And he's like, "No, we either all go or none of us go. Never mind that we literally see dozens of men get hit in the face with maces and stuff like that and are dead."
Yeah, but I mean, the scene immediately after that goes back to them fighting. So all these people that are fighting would have been left behind.
Right. Yeah. So it's like all the faceless civilians are getting fucking murdered. But it's like anybody who's been in a movie that's made any kind of money, those people need to survive.
Nice.
I mean, I don't really have anything else. Like, it is a dumb movie. The costume, I actually kind of like all the costumes. Like, I would fucking wear all that
Robin
shit.
Hood costume definitely just reminded me of Arrow.
Yo, definitely. I mean more like not the Robin Hood costume, but I just mean like the costumes in general. Like when he goes to the party and he's kind of wearing like a suit tunic. Like it looks like he's just wearing like a sports coat with like a shirt that doesn't have a collar on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, but I honestly would wear almost all those clothes. I thought the clothes were pretty slick.
You could wear anything you want, Mike.
No, I'm poor.
No, I meant, never mind.
You mean with my hot body?
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant.
No, I haven't been able to work out in 2 months because of my surgery. I'm actually getting really fat again.
Still hot bad.
No, I've got a fat fucking body. I'm fat and disgusting, and
just
nobody wants to look at me. Hey, what are you doing, bro?
Spoiler alert.
I'm gonna fucking have to bleep that out.
Edit that out.
One of the other notes that I had was so we didn't even talk about the beginning of this movie, which is kind of like a cop out right at the beginning. So it opens up with like a book, and it has like almost a swastika on it, which is weird. And then it's like Robin Hood, and then it has like a narrator that's Friar Tuck, and it's like, "I would tell you what year it is, but I can't actually remember." What the fuck? Like, are you kidding me? And then it's like, "I can bore you with the history, but you wouldn't listen. I could tell you this is the story of a thief." And then, it just kind of goes on. It's like, but you've heard all the origins. Forget what you knew. Forget what you've heard. You don't know anything about Robin Hood. And it's like, come on. It's trying way too hard to be like, this isn't your grandfather's Robin Hood story.
I mean, it was fun though.
Eh.
I think they did what they wanted.
I think they should have just been like.
Wasn't a good movie.
I think they should have just been like. They took it like they're in parts of it. It seems like they're trying to take it too seriously. In other parts, it's too tongue in cheek. Just be like, do one line. Be like, don't be like the. I could tell you what year it is, but I don't remember, or you don't care about the details. It's just be like, hey, you've all heard Robin Hood before, but those are all legends passed down over hundreds of years. This is the real story. Like, just keep it simple. Don't try to be all tongue in cheek about it.
So, what's the answer to the question? Should this movie have been remade?
I think that Robin Hood is one of those characters we're always going to get Robin Hood movies.
Yeah.
Forever. There might be 5 to 10 years apart. I mean, we didn't even cover all the Robin Hood movies that came out between Prince of Thieves and this one. So there was a Russell Crowe one.
Yeah.
I think this is one that's going to keep going. I
Do
think there was a good movie.
Do you think that
in
Robin Hood is popular enough though? Because like the Russell Crowe one didn't. What was the last successful Robin Hood?
The BBC TV show went for like 4 years and was like one of their biggest shows. So, Alice, shut your mouth.
When was that though?
That was like in like 2010, like 2009 to like 2013 or some shit like that. Let's look it up. Robin Hood BBC. God damn it. Gotta do all goddamn research.
Because like this one didn't do well. The Russell Crowe one definitely didn't do well.
So this went 2006 through 2009. So it had 3 seasons, and it was actually pretty popular.
I feel like Robin Hood at the moment is just not what's popping.
I definitely think that maybe it needs a break for a little while, but I think it is a character that we'll always go back to, and it's such a common thread. You even look at Uncharted. Nathan Drake is loosely based off Robin Hood, and he's like Robin Hood and Indiana Jones combined.
Well, like even like Hawkeye, but.
What did you mean, Hawkeye?
Hawkeye?
Is that what you were gonna say? Like Hawkeye?
Yeah, Hawkeyes. What?
Hot guys? We're talking about
Hawkeye, Green Arrow. Like he is. It's just like it's an archetype that will always be around, and I think that you can make a good Robin Hood movie. I think that this movie just was marketed not so well. I don't think it was marketed properly. It also came out in a weird time frame. It came out in like November. I think it came out like the week before or maybe the week after Fantastic Beasts, which wasn't a good movie, but it made money. It's just, I think there's a good movie in this. I think that it did enough things that were interesting. It did come off as corny, but I think you could make a good Robin Hood movie. So, do I think that maybe we could have had a remake? Absolutely. Katrina and I are both big Robin Hood fans, so we've actually watched several documentaries on Robin Hood. We actually covered the cartoon on the podcast. I think that a remake should have happened. I don't know if this is the right one, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. Alex, I don't think we've gotten an opinion out of you.
I mean, like, I had fun with it. I'm definitely not going to watch it again ever in my lifetime.
I honestly would watch this movie again.
If it was on TV, I wouldn't change the channel.
No, I would definitely watch this again. Katrina hasn't watched it yet, and she's expressed interest in watching it, and I would definitely watch it with her. I think a lot of it comes to the charm. Jamie Foxx is very charming and, fun to watch.
Really,
and
I had
Taron
no idea Jamie
Egerton's
Foxx
charming.
was in this movie. When he was revealed, I was like, oh shit, that's Jamie Foxx.
Yeah. I think everybody is, for the most part, is good. I Friar Tuck we didn't really talk about, but I thought he was an interesting version and an interesting take on the character. And,
yeah, I actually really like that version of Friar Tuck.
Yeah, I really liked how they did the whole got him excommunicated kind of thing, so that way he can just run the underground kind of rebellion. Like, there's enough stuff in this movie that they did well. I liked the whole like Robin Hood duality, because that's not really something we've seen in other Robin Hood stuff where, yes, essentially it's Batman, but it would make sense that, they would need to be able to do reconnaissance. So they would need to have somebody in like the city proper. Like, there are certain aspects of it. I think, if maybe they made it a little bit more serious, I think honestly having the weird mines with all the fire really cheapened the movie. Or even if they just made it more of a period piece and had, more accurate clothing, I think a lot of people just saw the costumes and thought it looked weird. I think with a few modifications, this could have been an awesome movie.
Well, I guess. Well, do you think they'll make sequel to it since they.
Oh, they definitely
Christian
won't make
Grey.
a sequel. This movie cost $100 million and
Holy
didn't
shit.
make its money back.
Solid.
Like, it may have just made its money back if you take, like, international box office. But I think, like, domestically here, it made, like, $4. No, I think it only did, like, less than $15 million on its opening weekend. Even though it was filmed in Europe, it's technically an American film. It had a estimated budget of $100 million. Opening weekend, they projected it to do $15 million. It did $9 million.
Jesus.
And then the gross worldwide was $82 million.
Oh no!
So it lost $18 million, and that's before you even take into account marketing. So they probably spent another $20 to $30 million at least. Normally, with a big movie, they spend anywhere from 50 to 100% of the actual budget on marketing.
Wow.
So let's say conservatively they spent $20 million on marketing. That
Very
means this would have lost, $38 million.
Ouch.
And it's not a long movie. Like, this movie doesn't even hit 2 hours.
Hour 56.
Yep. Yeah.
Hmm.
But I enjoyed it. It's just it's and they filmed it on the cheap. Like, they filmed it in like Croatia and Hungary and stuff, and it still didn't do well. It didn't do well at all.
Well, I gotta say, all the acting in this movie was somewhat better than Kevin Costner's.
I mean, honestly, like, Taron Egerton just played the role like Eggsy, just not with that accent. But it was basically the same role.
Yeah, but with arrows.
But with arrows. Honestly, Christian Grey's character was super boring. And then there's the twist ending. Christian Grey, a.k.a. Will Scarlet, a.k.a. Two-Face, became the sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah, but what was that scene at the end where he just shoots the wanted poster? Like, what's the point of that? I mean, I get it setting up the next movie, but, like, if that were the case, wouldn't he just get caught?
There he is.
He fired it from a distance.
Yeah, but for what purpose?
Just to be like, hey,
Just to be a
you
dick.
and I are going to be adversaries now.
Couldn't he just killed him?
Yeah, right? Yeah, I don't know. And, like, the whole subplot with, like, the church was really weird, and the go with God when he says he's going to kill everybody. Like I said, this is the same. Like, they stole plot elements from the latest Three Musketeers movie. They stole plot elements from Italian Job. They stole stuff from Batman, Batman. Like, it's not a original movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also a very unique movie in the same token. It's a conundrum to just talk about this movie.
So you're saying you don't want to like it?
No, I really enjoy it. Like, so when I went to see it in theaters, I was like, I really hope. I went in with low expectations, and I walked out remember liking the movie. And this time around, I was like, I don't know what it's gonna. I don't expect it to be good, and it's not good, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think that also added to the fact of why I liked it is that I had very low expectations.
And
of it.
there's something to be said for watching a bad movie every once in a while.
I guess.
But
We watched a lot of those.
It's not a good movie. It's not. But it was fun. It is what it is, and we will get another Robin Hood movie probably in the next 10 to 15 years.
So guys, if you see it on TV, don't change the channel, but don't go out and rent it.
Like, honestly, this is one of those movies that, like, if you're bored and you see it on, like, Amazon Prime or whatever, which it's not right now, but or if you Redbox it, like you're having friends over, like, it's easily something you can just throw on in the background and just kind of laugh at it. All right. So thank you guys for listening to Remake Rewind. And you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at MDXpods. If you guys want to suggest a topic or ask us a question, you can call 64 MDXpods1 and leave a voicemail. You can email us at mdxpods@gmail.com. You can support the show on Patreon. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening.
Hey,
Later, dudes.
see ya.